Hi everyone, my name is Justin Mungai. I'm a luxury travel influencer based in New York City. I have been creating travel content for the last approximately 4 years or just under 4 years. I still do it part-time. I know that several travel creators in the industry have gone full-time, but I still do it part-time. I spend the other bits of my time when I'm not traveling the world and shooting content, being an attorney here in New York City, practicing in criminal defense. And I also am a co-owner with my wife for an African print bespoke suit line. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk to you all about my experience as a travel content creator, as an influencer, and let you know a little bit about my journey, how it's been going, some challenges that I faced, and I hope you find this useful. I'm going to refer to some of the helpful prompts that I've been given using my phone. I've already marked up the questions that I want to ask, but so that it's helpful for you, I'm going to read out the questions, and then I'm also going to put them and overlay them over this video so that you all know what I'm talking about and when I'm talking about it. So the first question is, how did you first get into travel influencing and what motivated you to start sharing your experiences online? So this is a bit of an interesting inquiry for me because I sort of stumbled onto travel content creation, I want to say at least quasi-accidentally. I've always loved to travel. I've been fortunate enough to have had parents who gave me access to travel from a very early age, and it's always something that I've been interested in. But up until the pandemic, I wasn't really big on content, photos, videos. I was the guy who was, avoiding the camera. If people wanted to take photos, I'd be like, oh no, you don't have to take me, or I'd hide behind people in the camera shots. So it wasn't really my thing. And then the pandemic happened, and I think all of us can relate to the fact that we were all sort of seeking connection, that we were lacking in sort of our face-to-face interactions with friends, family, etc. So during the pandemic, I moved to Hawaii and I spent a year out there. And Hawaii was quiet, tourism was down, obviously people couldn't really travel. It was an extremely strict location to get into. They required a 7-day mandatory quarantine in your apartment or hotel room. So it wasn't a very appealing destination. But for people who went there for more long term, like myself for a year, it presented an avenue to really experience Hawaii. And when I was out there, I got lucky enough to visit all six out of the 8 Hawaiian islands that I had access to. And I started taking photos and videos of those experiences, the just raw beauty of the place. And I started posting them on Instagram, and one thing led to another. One photo here went viral, one video there went viral. And then I started developing a following. And initially to me it was like a window to like a more hopeful time that we're all kind of locked up inside, but there is still an outside. We're still going to get back to this. But then beyond that, I started just to enjoy the art of content creation, and it kind of just took off. And what initially just started out as a hobby and a way just to give people hope ended up being or becoming a business. So that's sort of like the origin story of my travel content creation journey. There's a lot more to it, and I've written a lot on it on my blog, which is a blog that I run with my wife, which is www.thefashionablefrequentflyers.com. So you can go check that out there. But it really is sort of an odd beginning to a journey that I'm now really grateful to be on. All right, next question. How do you choose the destinations you visit and share with your audience? This is a little bit interesting for me because I think that I'm maybe not unique, but I think away from the norm in this, in that for me what really appeals to me in travel is exploration and discovery. And so as a result, I tend to pick destinations that have been less frequently traveled so that I can explore those destinations for the first time, do my own research, and get to experience something like in its sort of raw form without me having been exposed to it a ton on social media or digital media or TV before going there, because it already feels like I already know what to expect. Whereas when I'm exploring destinations that are sort of off the beaten path or a little bit more unique, it feels a little bit like a journey of personal discovery. So that's sort of how I do it. That's not to say that I don't visit destinations that are frequently traveled by other travelers or other vacationers, but I just, in terms of what I think about when I'm thinking content, I try to expose people to destinations that they have not necessarily seen or seen too much of. And the goal in that is, the world is big and there's a lot of beauty in the world. We don't all have to go to the Maldives or Bali to get like a really unique experience. And that's not shade on those destinations. Those destinations are beautiful. My point is that the world has a lot to offer. And I would like people, at least through my channel, to see what the world has to offer in the hope that it inspires them to visit some of these destinations that really are worthy of visiting. So that's sort of how I select my content and select my destinations, and that's how I choose to share. Now, from a content reception perspective, sometimes it's received well, sometimes it's received not so well, but it is something that I'm passionate about, and so the trending trajectory is that it's generally better received the more I expose people to it. So I'm just going to continue on this journey. It's a journey that I value and that I personally enjoy. What's your process for creating content that resonates with your audience? So for any of you who've spoken to travel influencers and travel content creators, let's just say that the journey of content creation is fairly fluid. One, you're sort of at the mercy of the algorithm on Instagram, and that's constantly changing, so you're constantly trying to evolve how you create content so you stay relevant. But two, people's tastes and interests evolve based on what they're exposed to, and my goal usually when I'm creating content is to try to do something original. I sort of play a little bit fast and loose with concepts that I think are cool or I think that people will like. And what that means is I'm not creating the same thing over and over again. I'm not using the same hook over and over again, because to me that's just not that interesting, personally, in terms of the creation process. I understand why using the same hook would be appealing for some, because your content keeps getting shared to different people, so other people will not have seen that hook, etc., etc. But for me, as the creator behind the camera and in front of the camera, I want to do something that's consistently keeping me engaged. So my process typically, and just for a little bit of background, most of the clients that I work with are hotels or Airbnbs. I'm mostly in the luxury accommodation space, but I do also work with destinations, and I do also work with some lifestyle brands that sort of mesh very well with my luxury travel brand. But generally, just sort of focusing on the luxury accommodation space. My process is not unlike most. I will do extensive research into the property itself. I will look at photos online from various different sources, be it the property's website, TripAdvisor, Instagram, whatever I can find, so I can see all the places that I actually want to go see at the property, to see if there's something that I want to do there. Is there a frame that I want to capture there, whether it's for a photo or for a video? And then when I go on property, the first thing I do is go on sort of a self-guided tour. Sometimes I'll do a guided tour if it's offered, but most of the times I'll do a self-guided tour where I'll just sort of walk around all the property's amenities and then sort of start taking notes on my iPhone about what specific things that I want to capture. I already have some ideas before I arrive, but that's generally my first process. And then I start generating content that, one, I've agreed to provide, that I know that hotels and Airbnbs value. So room tours, welcome amenities, other things that make their property or their destination appealing to other visitors. Like, I want to go there, so I want to go and stay in this suite because that view is amazing. Or I want to go there because if I go there, I know I'll be treated this way, etc. So generally, that's my process. It's not a short process. It takes time. I shoot several different angles of the same concept. I try to shoot at different hours, even if at different hours of the same concept. So for example, I'll wake up really early and I'll try and get a sunrise shot, and if, for whatever reason it's a cloudy day, I'll go around 11 when the light's more agreeable on this cloudy day to get the same concept that I wanted. And if it's not, or if it's raining, I'll have to change it up and do different things. So you sort of have to adapt, because also as a videographer and photographer, you're at the mercy of light and you're at the mercy of weather conditions, especially if you're shooting a lot of outdoor content. So it requires a little bit of adaptability, but generally that's my process. That's how I go about things. Okay, all right. How do you balance the business side of influencing with the personal enjoyment of travel? I think the first thing and the most important thing is, if you enjoy travel but you really dislike shooting, whether it's photography, videography, etc., I would not say that this type of content creation would be for you, because you really do have to enjoy that so that it doesn't sort of diminish the value of travel. Because as you go through the process of traveling, as a content creator, at least for me, creating content is part of the fun. You build it into the various different experiences that you're going to have, or that you set yourself up for on your various trips. And in a lot of ways, I think about it not just as a business, but also capturing memories, really, really cool memories. My wife and I have a bunch of different photos and videos around our apartment that we took that were really, really cool photos of various experiences that we remember so fondly. So in that way, I think it's difficult to separate the two. I think you do have to have some affection for both the process of content creation and traveling. Otherwise, you end up in a push and pull relationship with your travel experiences. You don't really want that. But I will say this, that you don't only have to do content in sort of the more traditional ways, photos and videos or social media. There are a ton of people who do freelance journalism, who are writers, who prefer that form of generating content, and that is still content, for the brands that they work with. And if you enjoy that, that's a very different process, right? You get to do the trip and you get to write about it after the fact. So if that's more appealing to you, that's something that you do. It's something that I sort of do freelance sometimes. I do generally enjoy video and photography though, so for me, I don't really have that push and pull. But I say that to say there's a lot of different options for everyone. What has been the most memorable partnership or collaboration you've done so far? Honestly, I would say it is my partnership with the Sagara Retreat, which was one of my first ever collaborations. Sagara Retreat is an exclusive luxury sort of safari lodge, but even that doesn't seem to really capture its essence, in Kenya. It's located in Laikipia, and it's without question the best hotel that I've ever stayed at. And I've stayed at incredible hotels around the world, with all the sort of brands that you would think about, the Ritz-Carltons, the Langhams, the Fairmonts, the Waldorf Astorias, and this sort of boutique safari property in Kenya is still perhaps the most memorable place I've ever stayed at. It was so memorable that Linda and I returned there for our honeymoon after we got married last October. It's just such a beautiful place. And the thing that is especially memorable for me is that they believed in me when I was really early in the game, when I had anywhere between 10 and 15,000 followers, and it helped contribute to my growth. But the people were warm, the property was beautiful. It sort of just like was a photographer and videographer's haven. It was just really amazing. So look it up. It's all over my Instagram and my blog. It's truly, I think the title of my blog for the Segera retreat was Heaven is a Place on Earth, and it's called Segera. That's just how highly I think of it. So will always be my most memorable collaboration. Maybe no, I shouldn't say that. Who knows? I may have some more in the future, but right now it is the most memorable one to date. All right. How do you handle negative feedback or criticism online? This is an interesting question. I kind of sort of have a very brief answer. I always welcome constructive criticism. Anything that can make you better is something that you should be able to take on the chin. That's just how I've always been wired. My goal is to consistently improve. So if someone is offering me constructive criticism and tips on how to be better, I'm accepting all of that. If it's all the nonsense and the noise and the haters, I just ignore them. I ain't got time for that. So that would just be my advice to y'all. Don't waste too much time. Don't let other people discourage you. Like, it's not easy, but everyone wants to hate. Everyone wants to tell you can't do what you do. Everyone has their own opinions about what influences are and all of that. Like, I would just put that to the side and do you. What tools or equipment you rely on to capture content while traveling? All right, I'm gonna tell everyone right now. If you have an iPhone, or even if you have an Android that has a good camera, you can create content. The phone camera quality now is so good that you don't actually need a professional camera or DSLR to really create quality content. Having said that, while I do use my iPhone to create content, I do also have a DSLR that I do use, especially for photography, less so for videography, although I'm using it a little bit more for videography. And I also have a drone, which I absolutely love because aerial perspectives are really engaging and capturing, and it's sort of like just wowing for myself and for my audience as well. So those are sort of the three primary pieces of content pieces of photography and videography equipment that I use. I have a bunch of tripods. I have a bunch of sort of like portable lights and other things that I use, especially when I'm shooting at night, to sort of aid the process. But that's generally what I use. Finally, what are your travel goals for the future, and how do you see the travel influencing industry evolving? Honestly, my goal is just to keep traveling to places that are off the beaten path, keep exploring the world, keep exploring the US with every day that goes by. It's a very simple goal, but it's a very honest goal. I just want to keep on seeing, keep on being exposed. The industry, in my opinion, is sort of at an inflection point. I think while the creator market is growing, I think that the abuse or exploitation is probably a more accurate word, is becoming more rampant. And that generally happens when an industry becomes more saturated. There are going to be more people who are going to be willing to take less and give people on the other side more, which makes it very difficult to monetize in a way unless you're like really, really established, which I am not. So that's sort of a consistent battle, but also with increased saturation also comes with, an increase in the number of people who aren't generating quality, who end up burning clients and brands in a way that like puts them off from the market. So like there has to be some sort of reckoning that allows for creators who are genuine and who are interested in making quality content and interested in client service really to sort of rise above what I consider some of the more like people who want to exploit the industry just to get free stuff or to get paid for like very little effort, who don't want to actually do the work. I don't know what the answers are for that. I think that can be its whole other webinar and a whole other sort of like debate and discussion. But that's sort of where I think the industry is, and I think that there really is potential for the influencer market to like take off even more. Especially if there's a way to really communicate, especially in travel, what the ROI is on content creators. You know, I think thinking that people are just going to make really large scale decisions based off of one like Instagram click in the moment is perhaps an incorrect way to actually measure what the ROI is. You know, travel is a long-term expense. It is expensive, especially luxury travel. People are dropping like $3,000 to $5,000, and that doesn't happen like on a whim unless you're really, really rich. So there's just a lot of understanding that needs to happen between brands and creators so that we're sort of communicating on the same page. But I do think there's an opportunity for growth, but I do think that there's also a risk for further exploitation. So we're at an inflection point, but I hope that things get better. All right, thank you all. Sorry that I spoke so long. I tend to be a long talker. But, you know, again, my name is Justin Mungai. I am a luxury travel influencer based in New York. My Instagram handle is The Fashionable Frequent Flyer, and my blog is www.thefashionablefrequentflyers.com. Thank you all for your time. I hope you found this useful.